Chris Alvarado is a distinguished actor and improv coach recognized for his ability to unlock authentic human connections through the art of improvisation. His classes and workshops break the conventional rules of improv, encouraging authentic self-expression so that individuals can find their own source of inspiration, making meaningful connections with others in the process. Mitra, what were some of the key takeaways for you?
Well, first of all, this was a very fascinating and special episode. Chris, in real time, in a beautiful and wonderful and very authentic way, unfolded himself as we were asking questions. So that was extremely fascinating to me. But the other part was that Chris started speaking about one of his experiences of going for an audition. For people who do these things, that was fascinating. But as I was listening to him, it was like a mirror of human experience, our everyday experience of going through our experiences in life. He just took us step by step through all the emotions that he experienced. He's an expert, of course, but he was also, his authenticity allowed that to happen. So that was fascinating for me. How about you?
For me, I would say I loved the discussion we have about how you can look at life as one big improv and how that shifts everything and brings levity into life and allows us to have more fun with it.
So, if you feel emotionally stuck, or if you experience challenges and difficulties, openly expressing yourself, and more importantly, if you are curious about applying the principles of improv to your everyday life, well, this episode is perfect for you. So, let's take a listen together. Who's Chris?
Who is Chris? I don't know. I don't
Mm.
know.
Do you want to know?
I think sometimes I want to, and then sometimes I'm afraid of that.
What is the fear? You find something
Yeah.
that
That would resurface traumas that would, frankly, fracture this facade I've spent so long building.
oh, wow, I got shivers. Yeah, yeah, and we spend a lot of time making this facade. I love that. So if I have this water running, dripping in the basement, and it's interfering with the foundation of my home, isn't it better to find out about it so before it ruins my home?
Yes, theoretically.
But give me the but.
But maybe I could do a temporary patch on that drip. Maybe a little flooding is okay. Maybe doesn't need to be fully repaired. My house looks pretty good otherwise, and so on and so forth.
How many flooding can you take before your house collapses?
I fear it's going to be one massive flood. That's the fear. I don't actually, like, I don't know if I believe, but that's like the unknown fears. It's just going to be the one. As soon as I call people in to look, they're going to go, can't fix this.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, I can still lease it. It still looks nice. I paint it.
I love that. When it's hidden, it's more augmented and more dangerous. We used to play this game with my brother that he used to throw sheets on himself and go, woo, and used to frighten the hell out of me. But when the sheet wasn't there, I would go for him. He was older than me, but if he chased me, I would chase him back. There was no fear. The moment the curtains or the sheets will go on him, I would think, God, it's like I knew it was him, but he was covered and I couldn't recognize his voice. The same brother that I played with, that I had fights with, that I chased and was chased by, but covering makes things very like out of this world and dangerous and bigger than what they are. Do you agree with that, or do you see it differently?
I do agree with that. I do agree. And don't feel fully covered. I don't feel fully covered. I feel like I've if there was 3 or 4 coverings on top of me, I've pulled off a couple and I go, God damn, isn't this should be good enough. This could be okay. I've recognized some stuff. I'm not in denial about what I've been through. I just go like, if I pull any more sheets off, I don't want to completely unravel, is what it feels like. I know I'm mixing metaphors there, but I guess what I'm trying to get across is I don't feel, even the word facade, when I used that earlier, I feel like I take some pride in that facade, that it's not lost on me. Like, I'm not like, oh, everything's fine. Everything's fine. This is like, I'm aware of it. And I think that awareness keeps me a little more grounded in the knowing, like you're saying, that it's there, it's acting up, and probably needs some work.
Okay. Let me ask you another question. Do you like the Chris that you are right now?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
What if I told you without those things in the basement, you wouldn't be the Chris that you are today? What would you say to that?
Very scary.
Why is it scary? Why is it not of value?
Well, because I just said I like the Chris that I am right now.
Well, the Chris that you are right now is because all those pieces of puzzle had to come together, including the scary aspect, the covered aspect under the facade, for you to be who you are. Because if we took that away, like, you probably wouldn't be the Chris that you are today.
And I think I'm afraid of that version. I think that I feel like I don't know. This has been something I've been dealing with for a long time, but I feel like that version, Mitra, becomes so unrecognizable that I lose like myself, like that I become this, for lack of a better, like this wild madman spirit or something. Or next thing I'm like dancing on the beaches, like naked and speaking in tongues or something. I'm afraid that I will like lose my, I don't know. I don't know.
I can relate, Chris. Very much, very much. I've done it. I've done the work. I've gone to these really dark places, and it's so scary. It's as scary as death for people who still haven't come to peace with death, right? If not more. Terrifying to go to these places, because I notice for me, I spent literally my lifetime building armor and walls around some of these things, right? And it's been in this very dark corner of my being that I have not peered into, and I haven't dared to peer into. And the thought of even going there is just, it's terrifying. It's the unknown, right? Because those things that I experienced were a long, long time ago when I was very young, and I couldn't process it. It was terrible for me. And yeah, so I can relate. And it was actually the challenge for me was that it felt like it would be overwhelming for my nervous system. Like, can I even handle this? So I just want to say I understand where you're coming from, and I've come out the other side. I'm still in the process, but I've gone to some of these really, really challenging places within me.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. I also think who I present as today is in some ways due to work that I've done as well. I've done traditional talk therapy and so on and so forth. I read the right books, that type of stuff. So I don't feel I'm like walking around completely fake. I just don't know that I'm walking around completely, whatever the opposite would be to that, like completely not real, but like cracked open or something. But like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, with like a lowercase d, I've dealt with some of this stuff. You know what I mean? And I say lowercase d because I don't know what full healing looks like or feels like, or what the next level will look like.
I have an image of that. I'm not sure if it's the truth. It's my truth. For me, healing is when I can sit, the Mitra today, can sit here, call that character that I'm either hurt by, embarrassed by, shamed by, troubled by, and hold the space for her to show up and say, thank you. You were part of my growth. I am not you. I am the aware self that I'm sitting here today. But I acknowledge that you were part of my history. I did do whatever it is. I cheated. I lied. I was from a background that I'm embarrassed about, whatever the case might be. And we all have different stories, and doesn't matter what the story is. The main theme of that story is I was or had something that I do not wish to be or have today. But it was only through, if we understand the nature of life and human being, it is only through what I do not want is that I recognize and get clarity through what I do want to be, to have, to do, to experience. And I am happy to acknowledge that. It was because I was in that condition that I realized I don't want to be there. It was because I did that and said that I realized, no, that didn't taste good. I don't want to do that. And I need to acknowledge that and not get separated and disconnected from that part of me. Otherwise, I don't feel whole. Because when I say Mitra, that also includes the Mitra, the unwanted experiences of Mitra, or unwanted characteristics of Mitra, whatever we're talking about. And I want to respect that. And when I can respect that, been there, done that kind of experience, then that allows me to take that into consideration and with a different respect and different outlook. So that's, to me, because I don't speak psychology, I'm not a psychologist, so I don't understand that. It's not a psychological healing. It's energetic healing where I invite it in, sits with me. I don't feel endangered by it. I don't think, oh, all of a sudden I'm going to do those things or I'm going to be in that situation again. No, I have agency here. I'm sitting here. I have a choice. But I also know that that was huge part of the pieces of the puzzle that I call today Mitra, which is ever changing, of course. Next year, I would be a different Mitra. In fact, 1 minute from now, I will be a different Mitra. So I respect it, and I'm comfortable at least to speak about it with myself. Talking to public is a different stage, and that's fine. You may still want to pick and choose. I don't want to share everything with everyone. But at least with me, I sit with her very comfortably. She's welcomed. She's quite welcomed. As ugly as she or her experiences might be to me. How does that work for you when I say that?
I feel like the other parts of me, that the hidden parts that we want to welcome in and make up the whole of me. And this is weird because I might feel like, I don't know, I'll just say what I'm feeling. I feel like it's not based on things that I've done, but rather things that have been done to me. Mm-hmm. And it's more like when I look over and see that, I don't see anything I'm ashamed of my actions. I've made mistakes, but nothing that like, oh, that part of me that I'm ashamed. I don't feel that. I feel bad for this other part of Chris that had to go through experiences that he shouldn't have had to. He shouldn't have had to have. So I feel like rather than hiding a part of me, I feel like I'm walking around protecting that part of me. Does that make sense?
Are you protecting the person or the experience of knowledge of the experience?
I don't know. I guess what I'm seeing now is frankly a smaller Chris. Just that's what I'm seeing. Yeah. And I'm protecting him from the experiences that he went through, which I'm even fine sharing. It's just, so yeah, I've spent a lot of my life, and I guess maybe there might be a little shame in that, like, I was maybe embarrassed of where I come from or socioeconomic and whatnot. Maybe there's some shame there, but yeah, I guess that's my reaction, is that it's more about protecting that rather than hiding that, though both feel separated from me. I will say that both feel like that part's over there for sure.
Yeah. So if you brought the little Chris here let's say there's 3 of us and we brought the little Chris, instead of denying his experiences and said, kiddo, we know what happened to you, but we love you nevertheless. We want you to know it is with that knowing that we love you, because that child also, like us, if I'm wearing that mask and you say, Mitra, you're such a wonderful friend, I'm thinking, well, Neil, if you knew the real me, you would never say that. But what if you knew that? And that's what the whole intimacy in relationship, be it friendship or be it romantic, that's all it is. I'm saying, see my warts, but still love me. Can you love me with my warts? Because everybody loves me when I'm all done up and I sound good and I'm a teacher and it's like, wow, that's interesting. But I sit with my partner and I say, I feel like this. I really considered harming someone. Do you still love me? And when he says, yes, I do, because I too can relate to that as a human being, then that goes to a different place, that protection is not needed. Understanding and love probably is more of the words I would use. Acceptance, allowance of our humanhood to be there, rather than saying, no, Mitra had really good experiences. She never has bad thoughts and she's kind to everybody and I'm going to protect her. If somebody says Mitra just said this, is no way. She will not do it. That's a protection that is not, first of all, sustainable. Secondly, of not use to me, because I'm still feeling like a person that has not been seen. But if somebody said, I see you, I know your background, Chris, I hear you, I even know about what has been done to you and what you have done and thought about. But you know what, Chris? I still think you're so amazing. You are of value. You are a human being that I value and I want to spend time with and get to know. What would you say to that? What's the difference between these two? Me not knowing you and celebrating you, me knowing you and wanting to still be with you and accepting you.
Frankly, I think I spend more of my time there, Mitra. I think most people do know my situation. I actually had a problem. I used to lead with that. First thing I said right out of the gate is, I probably come off weird to you because I'm a bit of a gangster. I grew up in a situation that was pretty fucked up. Robbed houses with my mom and stuff. So I used to lead with that.
And then what happened?
Well, I'd actually get addicted to the response. Wow. There's a couple of responses. One, like just shock. And that felt nice to have some kind of ownership over the rockiness. And 2, to get this response. Look at you now. And that always felt good. Even if I was faking the funk. Well, I used to have this analogy, like I feel like people would say, wow, you walk so well for someone that was hit by a car. And I'd be like, oh, me? I'm just trying to do my thing. You know what I mean? I would like lead with that. Yeah. And as I've gotten older, I don't lead with that anymore, which I'm happy about. But I think the people closest in my life, well, I know my closest relationships, they know it. They know the experiences. They know the things I've done that I'm not proud of in response to those things. And I feel good about that. There's just still this, because as I finish that thought, I'm like, well, I guess I'm done. Anyway, I'm perfect. I guess the one thing that's still lingering is this, I don't know if it's the tools or I just somehow still haven't been able to like fully feel whole with those experiences and who I am today. Everything I said to you earlier about leading with my traumas and stuff, I guess it's called trauma dumping these days, more felt like a coping mechanism rather than an actual use of honesty. I'm collapsing here. It's because I can say everything I just said, and I do mean everything I just said. And a lot of people in my life know the things I've been through. And so I feel like there's something hidden there. But even that feels like I've gotten really good at these sound bites to the people at the bar, in that meeting, at that dinner, but not fully whole with myself. That's a clunky way to say that.
But a beautiful way of saying it.
Mitra, I have a question for you on this, actually. Flipping it on you.
Let's go.
Chris brings up an interesting point. I think a lot of people deal with that, right? Where they're in this kind of this gray area. Like they're not avoiding their challenges.
Yeah.
They're not denying them. They admit them, right? But they haven't fully found peace and healing with them. right? There's still a charge, right? And I have my own perspective, but I'm curious what you have to say. What is finding peace and wholeness with our past, quote unquote, traumas?
Not identifying with them is the first thing that came to my awareness. I am not my trauma. I am not the person who did this or was done to this way. That's one. Two, really at the bigger picture, I think for me, at least personally, and in my professional work, is to really understand the wholeness. Actually, I love the word that Chris used. The wholeness that we speak about and seek and pursue comes from understanding that that also was part of this. I once had a vision, I think, between somewhere between sleeping and being awake in a very, very deep meditation, that I was sitting at a theater that was empty. I was the audience, and the movie of my life was going on in front of me. And on the stage, all the characters that were part of my life, going back to as far as I could remember in kindergarten, the person who was making trouble for me, they were all joining the stage. And my understanding of that vision was that they were all in it together. It was a plan for me to wake up and understand life in a bigger sense. So it was like, as they were going on stage, I was thinking, you too? They would say, yeah, we were part of it. We knew what we were doing. We just played this role for you, for you, for you, not against you. They all played a role, some negative roles, some positive roles, for me to be where I am in this moment. And they were all, and I know this sounds like a Hallmark card, but they were all part of my teaching team. One taught me with violence, one taught me with love, and many shades in between. My father taught me by leaving very early in my life. My mother taught me by staying, and I'm caring for her at her late 90s. But they were all teaching me. They were all part of it. So you take the bad and good and wrong and right out, and you see them. Actually, I respect the person who played the difficult role, because it's easy to be the nice guy in the play, but is it easy to be the person who plays the difficult role and beats you up emotionally, or I don't know, maybe even physically? So I respected that as a much, much bigger picture. And then that's how I see it.
May I?
Yes.
I grapple with the idea of I am not my trauma. I haven't worked it out, so I'm going to work it out right here in front of you both. I guess the grappling is this. On the one hand, that feels very freeing. On the other, it feels a bit delusional almost, that some of the responses I have, actions I take, are still coming from that trauma source. And I wonder if you could help me marry those ideas of I am not my trauma, which again, I don't have to reiterate, you understand.
Yeah. So what are you referring to? What kind of decisions and actions? Are they the ones that are smooth and helpful for your growth and for others? Or are they the ones that are, okay, good. They're not. You're shaking your head. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. So to me, there's a process. Again, this is not psychological. This is energetic. I say that because people who are in that world cannot relate to it sometimes. So if I have a trauma, first is the identification and acknowledgement of that. Then it's the unfolding of that, but for a very particular purpose. For me, the purpose is to get those lessons that were hidden in that. Because if I was exposed to this experience, there must have been something in it for me. That's my philosophy, very, very small t truth for me. I look for lessons. And if I haven't got the lessons fully, if I haven't understood it in that sense, then I will be still traumatized by my trauma. And hence I will be, Ben and I were just talking about this. These emotions that have not been felt, there's two ways to work with emotions that we've had because they're energies. We either feel them out or act them out. So when I haven't felt them out, meaning that I haven't got the reason for it and lesson for it and grown through it, then I will be acting it out. Of course, the first person that shouts, I will jump because I'm associating this with the shouting that brought about a lot of difficult emotions and experiences for me. But if I've done that, that's why these old sayings are so wise. They either make you or break you. So next time somebody shouts, let's say that was my trauma, for a light trauma, I actually connect to my power. It's like we have a saying in Farsi, there's no color darker than dark black. So you can't frighten me with that, that I have been through the worst. So you shout and I say, Chris, I hear you shouting. Is there anything you want? Because I've been through it. I know exactly what to expect and I know what to deal with it. But if I haven't learned my lessons, the moment you raise your voice, I get, troubled by it and I don't know what's happening. So that only tells me, if I'm seeing it as a way of covering up my trauma, that tells me that I haven't fully unfolded maybe my main traumas.
I love this. I guess my next question or thought is, and I bet a lot of people feel this way, maybe I don't know what it means to feel them out. I know what it means to act them out. As a child or growing up, I thought feel them out meant, wow, I feel very sad about that situation. That was really sad for me, but that hasn't worked. And if I may, lately as this weird little experiment, I've been documenting these kind of what I'm calling these trigger songs. This is so strange. Hear me out. I'll be at CVS looking for a gift card and I'll hear a song. I don't mean to be crude here, but that kind of fucks me up, okay? And I decided to jot these down. I now have a catalog of about 6 songs. And the thing they all have in common is, I'm actually playing it up right now, it doesn't matter, is the year they were all released. They were all released in 83 or 84, which was the year my parents got divorced. I was very young. I didn't think it was affecting me at all. And yet my wife will play, they're all popular songs, by the way. So they're everywhere. And it is surprising at almost 45 years old to have recognized that my parents were divorced or recognized this rocky childhood, that a pop song from 1984 can kick me right in the chest. And so that feels like an example of where I don't know how to feel that. I don't know what's happening there. Because I go, I can see this pattern. I understand why. That is sad. It wasn't your fault. You're a little baby. Why am I still being affected? Stuff like that comes up for me. I go, I guess I just don't know how to feel them out.
Mitra did some work together previous to this podcast, and it had a very profound impact on me. The first arrow hurts you. The second arrow kills you. The first arrow is out of your control. The second arrow is in your own hands. And the first arrow is that life circumstance that happens to us that hurts. The second arrow is how we judge, label, criticize, or push away that experience in some way. Like, I shouldn't be feeling this way. Why am I feeling this way? This is ridiculous. I'm 45 years old. And it had a really profound impact on me because the moment I was able to just give myself permission to feel sad and just be like, you know what? Okay, yeah, I am triggered by it. And that's okay. And in fact, not only is that okay, but I'm curious. I'm curious to get to know this part of me. It's weird because it feels like there's like parts of me that are separate from me, but it's all me. So this is interesting. I'm really curious to get to know this part of me and understand it. And as I did that, then I started to feel it out. Let me tell you. Then this part of me, it's so weird. It's unusual because it's all me, but it's as if this little kid who was so scared, he was hiding and he didn't feel like he could come out, suddenly felt like he had permission to come and share with me how he was feeling. And oh, dude, there was so much sadness. There was so much pain, but there was so much love. It felt like my child and I understood. I understood these irrational triggers and anxieties that I would get. I finally, I was like, I get it. I understand. Come here. Let me hold you. I love you. It's okay. You can feel scared. I give you permission to feel scared. And that is when the shift happened for me. That's when I was able to feel some of these things out and realize then through that like, oh, all of these triggers, these traumas are actually, there's treasures underneath, truly. And it's my paradigm as a result has shifted. It's now a paradigm of like, ooh, I'm triggered. I'm excited about what I can learn from this. I'm excited to hold space for this thing that is, I can't understand. It's irrational, makes no sense, but I know it's here to teach me something. And that's when, Mitra, your paradigm is so much easier to adopt. But even before all of that, I think there's this fear, right? And like even before this whole process for me, Mitra, I had to get past the fear of going there and realizing that there is nothing to fear by holding space for this thing. Most of the pain that I was experiencing was the fear, was the very fear of it. Or like the anxiety or the tension around it was not the thing itself. It was the fear of it. It was the rejection of it. It was that, no, I shouldn't be feeling this way. It was the pushing against it. That was what was creating most of my anxiety and my pain.
Being afraid of being afraid. I'm afraid that I'll be afraid. But there's an assumption there. There's an assumption when Chris says a music comes on and the memory comes. It's a very interesting, first of all, these memories come through the senses, so we need to be aware of them. It's a smell. Scent is another one. A scent can completely take me to a memory, a sound, a taste. So all the senses that we have, some stronger than others. But to the point that Ben was saying, there's an assumption there. The assumption is this, Chris, that, oh, this took me to 1985. Oh my God. But the oh my God comes from the assumption that I am incapable of handling it. Yes, the little kid maybe was, but this man today is able. So it's not a period, it's a comma. It is hard. It takes me back to a memory that was obviously heavy and I'm carrying it all these years later, comma, I can handle it. I can handle it. There's nothing wrong with being sad. People are so averse to difficult emotions. That's why we don't say it. So what is wrong with saying, how are you, Mitra? And I say, Ben and I had a talk just before this session, and we said that. This is a heavy week. Yes, energetically, it's been a very heavy week. But we're still here. We're alive. We're breathing. We're going to go through it. So I can handle it. My capacity is also expanding as I'm growing. So the 10-year-old or the 15-year-old Mitra that couldn't handle what happened, or even yesterday Mitra. Today, I'm hoping to expand my capacity. So instead of denying the experience, I am expanding the space for them. There's a space. You bring an item home and you say, where do I put it? I say, well, put it in the corner there by the lamp. There's a space for it, as opposed to, I don't like it. I don't want it. Oh my God. It's like that aversion brings more attention. It's just like saying, don't turn around and look at the woman in yellow. You immediately want to see the woman in yellow.
Well, and it's like an improv. Someone who's not following yes and, someone who's not accepting what was just said and is trying to work around it.
Tell us about improv in this world.
The need for improvisation used to be a tool for acting, the way I saw it. And these days it is, these people don't want to be actors. They're looking for something. They're looking for something. And I don't think they're even looking for comedy necessarily. I'm not smart enough to know exactly what it is, but some patterns arise, or I don't know, people want to connect. They want to play. Everybody who shows up is so fearful, which I think is so courageous at the same time. It'd be different if 10 people showed up to my classes being like, I'm ready to go. Instead, they keep showing up and they're like, I'm nervous to get on stage. And I'm like, this is fascinating. You paid for this. You're showing up after a long work day to do something that really scares you. And I think that's beautiful.
Isn't improv acting it out knowingly?
Can we, for the audience, just to set a foundation, can we lay out just what are the core tenets of improv?
Yeah, so we touch on the one, right, which is yes and, which is the agreement and adding more information. That when somebody offers a gift in a scene by way of a line or some kind of action, that we not only say I see it, but I add to it. And that's a really beautiful way to be seen, to be honest. It's really easy for someone to say, yeah, I see it. But when they say, yeah, I see it, and I add to it, geez, that's a really beautiful moment. So yes, and is the tenement, right? Tenement? I don't know if that's the right word. And then there are these kind of subgroups in there, right? It's this listening, this hyper listening, the idea of following the follower. What does that mean? Following the follower is such an interesting concept that it's hard for people's brain to wrap around, but it's building something one brick at a time. Yeah. And it's funny, Ben, when you ask me this, I shy away from it almost from the question because there's so many cliche improv answers, which, Mitra, like you said earlier, sometimes these old sayings, they're just old. That doesn't mean they're wrong. They're actually very applicable. I think same thing with improvisation is like, I, as somebody who does this constantly, I hate saying yes and these days because it evokes this like, I don't know, this eye roll sometimes from like mainstream. And maybe I only have experienced that because I'm deep within it, but yeah. But really, it's just quick. One last thing. It's listening and it's being present. And that is very hard for people to do. Presence is where it's at. You want to get rid of anxiety? You want to get rid of the need to perform? Be present. But holy moly, how difficult that can be.
It's not easy. Be present. Don't try and anticipate. The irony, one of the biggest takeaways last week was this whole idea of like, I don't have to try and be funny. I don't have to try and say the funny thing. What is more interesting and is what ends up coming out as funny is when it's organic, when it's not planned, when it's just us riding the moment, me just responding to the first thing that Mitra says, yesing it, like, okay, yeah, what she says, if it's true, then what?
That's it. You just said it. It takes a lot of time. I'm going to go off. I don't have any, I shouldn't. It's like we're building those neural pathways in there. Again, I'm not any kind of expert when it comes to brains, but it feels like everybody in my class would get 100% on a written test. Nobody doesn't know these rules or these ideas. Everybody would get 100%. And then you ask them to put it on stage in a scene and the wheels fall off. Mm-hmm. And that's very interesting. Mitra, to your point, the acting it out. Again, nobody there thinks it's a good idea to be a jerk or try to be funny. We know that. And then as soon as they get up there, these alarms start going off in their head. They are not enough. What they're saying isn't enough. I must prepare ahead. I have to appear to be clever or entertaining or funny. And then we lose connection, we lose presence, and it's just that it doesn't pop.
Chris, I have a question for you. How much of, in a deeper sense, how much of your experiences, whatever they were, before you were this, do you think informed you choosing this particular line of work?
And I want to refine that question one step further, because you are about going beyond the rules so that people can find their own source of inspiration. You've carved a niche within improv for you. So I'm curious to hear about that as well.
I wish it was as easy as saying, I needed attention, so I had to get on stage.
Yeah. No, deeper like than psychological, deeper than that.
It was improvisation, acting in general, I'd say, but improvisation specifically allowed me to go into worlds and realities that weren't today and now, I think, initially. And that was the draw, where no matter how crummy everything else was, I could be a king, or I could be a dragon, or go to these Imagination, yeah, and spend time there. And I thought that was pretty incredible. And then Ben, to your point about that niche, it's really interesting because for a long time I didn't want to have that particular niche, but it kept calling to me, which was, what if this work wasn't funny? Is that allowed? And everyone around me is telling me, no, it's not. And then my students are having these tearful scenes, and I go, we are doing something gorgeous here. Something really beautiful is happening here. This can't be wrong. And then I reflected on my own experience where my whole fucking life, I felt like I've been white knuckling it. Hollywood, comedy, everything, just white knuckling it. And the kicker is, to some degree of success. So that's where it gets complicated, because then other people are looking at you, and then you might give them the false roadmap that you're on, that's not bringing you any joy, but because you have this status, it feels like that's the thing. I spent 6 years at a community college called Cerritos College. It's one of my favorite places in the world. And a buddy of mine teaches there now. And he used to bring me in as the acting guy who would come talk to the acting students. And I'd always be like, get an agent and then get headshots and do this. And now when I show up, it's different. It's much different. I go, no. I just try to encourage them to follow, Ben, like you said, what inspires them. But no one's taking the time to ask themselves what inspires them, because they're too busy wanting to give everybody else what it is they think they want. And I'm
trying to meet expectations.
And it's the
irony. It's such an irony, right? Because when we do what inspires us, it's so much more interesting, funny, engaging, authentic, connective.
Absolutely. And it is, Mitra, you said the word energy a bunch. I rarely use that word, except I use it in the classroom a lot when I go, I don't know why that felt so good, but wasn't there an energy that changed? What if somebody else read a line that a student just said on stage, it wouldn't hit the same. Because in this moment, we had an organic discovery that was coming from a place of pure inspiration, and boy, does that hit differently, Ben. And these people you don't have to be a trained comedian to get that big laugh. It's that authentic moment to go, how much are donuts? And everyone laughs because this person was genuinely curious in that moment. You know what I mean? It's a moment like that.
Yeah. What's fascinating to me, Chris, is that you said, what if it's okay if it wasn't funny? What if it was okay that it evoked sadness or whatever it was? And that's exactly what I was sharing earlier when we were talking about how to deal with our own shadows, right? Our own traumas.
Wow.
It's the same thing. Same exact.
That tickled me.
And here you are, you're asking, you're like, what is it like to feel? And you know the answers. It's like, you're doing it. That's the beauty of it.
And both examples involved the tears as well. That's incredible. And the last kind of puzzle piece for me is the classroom enough for me? Or do I need this to be seen by the people? And so for my students, the classroom is enough. We do class shows. Those usually fall apart because everybody throws everything they learned away and the fear comes. But for myself, I think I still have a couple of things to do in front of the people, and I'm excited about that. I'm excited. And it might not be what they're asking for. Listen, I have an audition today. I had an audition yesterday. The work for me today is like, can I show up as Chris? Like, that's such a crazy thing to say. But like, really, it's like, rather than being the good boy, rather than trying to hide that little Chris we talked about earlier, rather than hoping they can't smell that I'm from a lower class family, can I just walk in there and just like have a little fun? Because it's been downright painful.
I wonder if you were more accepting and allowing of that Chris, how would you show up differently, both in your teachings and in whatever else that you have to do? I wonder. Do you wonder?
All the time. I think I'm actually more in touch with it in my teaching. Something else takes over me. I don't really talk about that a lot, but I put together words and sentences I've never heard myself say in my entire life in those moments. I'm not very eloquent typically, and I don't mean that as a dig to myself. I don't have a large education or a big vocabulary, but in that room, it's different. But what I would love to explore, Mitra, is how I would show up in an audition setting, because I become what my students become, which is I could pass the written test leading into the audition, things I should and shouldn't do. And then once I'm in there and the eyes are on me, it feels like a lifetime of, just feels like I need to prove so much. Listen, my line could be, hey, don't eat all those Cheerios. I'm not saying I'm going in for these gorgeous big movies. I'm saying a line for a commercial. Sometimes I'm not even on my voice. I'm deep inside my chest. I feel this anxiety. I feel a judgment, a self-judgment, like so much, even though I know.
I have some suggestions for that. Let's see
Yes.
if you can, since you have an audition today. Let's see. Sorry, I just have a coach in me. I can't stop her.
I love it.
Let's just see if it works. So few things come to my awareness. The first one is when you're teaching, I assume, because I teach too, you usually are in talking about energy, the energy of service. So it's a different one. I've come here, for instance, to unfold Chris. I don't want to sell anything. I don't want to. The outcome is, can I be as kind and deep and accommodating as I can be to Chris and also serve our audience? Okay. But when I go to an audition, I assume, never been to one, so please forgive me for lack of experience, but I probably want to impress. Impressing is a very heavy energy. I give energies value. That's you know why? Because let's say I wanted to impress you. I have no idea what your expectations are. I don't know what happened this morning with you and your family members. I don't know what you think I should be doing, yet I need to fulfill it. So it's almost an impossibility. So I'm going for failure right from the bat, right from there. However, if I came with that energy of, I'm going to just serve the craft, not any person, because in audition, I'm serving the craft of acting, which is quite interesting to human beings, actually. There's a whole world in there why we act, but let's just leave it at acting. So serve the craft, serve myself, serve someone, like the energy being serving as opposed to impressing, because how can I impress the people and the purpose that I'm not even aware of? That is just like shooting in the dark and hoping that you go right, bulls, almost an impossibility. So changing the intention and the energy with which I show up in an audition to the one that is very familiar, because I know I teach, you teach that. You go in thinking, how can I transfer what I have to these people so it can be helpful for them? It's called service, in short.
To another layer to that is like, I'm so curious to see what that translates to. Maybe it leads to something, me getting the role, maybe it doesn't, but I'm just so curious to find out, right? So leading also with the curiosity, right? Like,
yeah,
that's what I've found has helped me a lot with these things.
I love that. Listen, at this point, I've resigned myself to not getting the role. That really is, to be honest, it's secondary, almost tertiary, to be honest. The getting the role part, I would really just like to work on the experience of the audition itself. And I like this test, Mitra, or this, not test, but yeah, I like trying this idea out, because you're right. You go in there trying to impress, which, even though I don't know the numerology for these energies, I understood what you meant by that's a fucking high number. Like, that resonates with me. But not only am I trying to impress, as soon as I step out of my car, I'm going to be really honest here. As soon as I step out of my car at any audition site, I want to impress on the way as I'm walking to the building, in case another actor or somebody else driving by sees me. So I'm immediately in my head, how do I look? Probably pretty cool, because I'm tall, I'm 6'3", I'm handsome enough. I still got some hair, whatever, good teeth, whatever. And that's in my head, right? Walking there, and then I'm in the elevator. I'm picturing the one I did just yesterday. Oh, someone else is in the elevator. Well, we got to impress them by showing that you actually don't actually care, or that you're actually in a really good mood when you're not, or a number of ways. Or what energy are they giving you? Are they being a punk? Well, then, you know what? I'm a fucking gangster. So now I'll give you that energy. Oh, we're at the fourth floor. Walk in. Now somebody's walking by with the bathroom key. And I look at them, I go, similar type as me. That person just went in for the same role as me. What energy are they giving me? Which one should I give them? Oh, he looks smiley. I'll be smiley. Okay, walk in. Now I have to sign in. And there's a person behind the desk where you sign in your name and the role and stuff. Now I got to give this energy here, impress this person here, and be like, oh, make a little wisecrack because you just want to be cool but nice. You don't want it. So you don't want to appear desperate. Everyone always says that in acting, like, okay, so I don't want it. Fine. Now you're sitting down. Now there's that energy. Isn't this exhausting, by the way? This was just yesterday. I do these all the time. Okay. Yeah. We're not even in the room yet. And now you're sitting in the waiting room, looking at the other actors, looking at your lines, but you don't want to be too much in your lines. Cause then what do you like? Do you not know the lines already? And then, but you don't want to not look at them because you don't want to go in there and not know them. And then someone wants to make small talk. Well, you got to have to like, yeah, let's do this. Yeah. And you both go like, I hope you don't get it. I hope you don't get it. Good to see you. Yeah, cool. Then you walk into the room. Then you have the session runner there, the person who's going to put you on tape for the audition. Yesterday, the guy knew my name. The author know my name. That feels good. This little spike of validation. Oh, okay. Yes. Then it's time to do the audition. And then after the thank you. Yesterday, I stopped myself from saying something belittling about myself for the sake of sounding funny. I wanted to make this crack that I appreciate him helping me with such like a man role because I'm not like a very manly man or something to that effect. I wanted to let him know that I know that he probably thinks I'm not man enough for this role because it's an alpha role. I know, Ben, I know I just got to get all this out because I've never said this entire process out. So there's all this. I haven't even said that I've enjoyed the craft of acting in that, Mitra, that I had fun as a character. Granted, commercials are a little different. It's not much character. It's a line, it's a this, but still, there's barely a blip of actual enjoyment in that entire process. Then I got to get in my car, drive an hour, blah, 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 this and that, and so on and so forth.
It's exhausting, Chris. I'm listening to you and I feel exhausted, honestly. And so glad that you're saying this because I'm sure a lot of our listeners are in that world or would like to be in that world or in a similar world that requires the same kind of energy consumption. And I'm thinking, what if, and I know this is idealism, what if I could get into my car and think, if this is a role for me, it's a role for me. If it's not, I'll find out soon. And I'll smile at the person that I feel like smiling to. And I just am non-smiling, nothing else to other people. But my focus is on the delivery. Because by the time you got to the room, and thank you for taking us through the trip between the parking. No, it's very fascinating. Don't get me wrong. I was fascinated by it. Yeah. And I'm thinking, you're exhausted by the time you get there, even if this was a perfect role for you and a perfect character for you, you couldn't deliver it because you were exhausted. It's like asking somebody asking me to teach at 11 o'clock at night. Am I good at it? Yes, but not at 11 o'clock at night. I just want to go to bed. So it's the exhaustion, the consumption of attention and energy in a very unuseful and almost harmful way. And then no wonder you're not going to get the role. I know why you're not going to get the role, because you're exhausted by the time you get there. And the only thing you're not paying attention is the role. You just remembered the lines, but not the role. They're different things. You can say the lines, but if you are in the character, and I just thought about something, Chris, the characters that live within us, and there are many of them. We just talked about some of them, the little boy in you, the professional you, whatever. What if this role that you're playing or need to play, it was one of those characters, just connecting to that? Because we all hold all the characters. I hold the shouting alpha male character. Believe me, been there, done that. But is that my main role? No, I've probably done it like twice in my life, but I know how to do that. If I need to, take me to any unfair setting and watch me be far more man than you and Ben put together.
Yeah, what if it was approached, what if, like, I've been playing with this just recently, like, life is just one big theater experience, right? So, like, what if life was just one big long form improv show, right?
Exactly.
And like everybody is a character in this improv, and I just need to, I'm honing my improv skills. Like, okay, yeah, you came with that. Okay, yes, and okay, if that's true, then what else?
Yeah.
It's a paradigm shift, right?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Please try it.
Easier said than done,
report
for sure.
back.
But even just saying this all out loud is just like, oh, I didn't even realize how exhausting it was until I realized I wasn't even in the room yet in my own story, you know?
Well, dude, I want to really acknowledge you for, one, your vulnerability. I'm so grateful for it. It's such a gift to us and everybody who's listening. Thank you. And also for your level of awareness. Like, I think you're saying it, right? And a lot of people do that unconsciously, might not even realizing it. Now that you say it, it's like, oh, wow. Yeah, I do that. Yeah. And it takes an incredible amount of awareness for someone to be able to observe all of that and like re-articulate it. So I want to commend you for that, man.
Thank you. Thank
you.
Yeah. I think you're deeper than what you would like to acknowledge. Usually people pretend they're deep. I think you're pretending that you're not that deep. That's my conclusion.
I think that's probably right, Mitra. Thank you for first of all, for all of this. This has been wonderful. Ben, my last little thought on the awareness is I think sometimes I do feel like I'm aware. And I think sometimes maybe that gets me by enough where someone goes, well, you don't have to work on this stuff. Or it seems that it appears that I am working on it because I can say it out loud. That might be a first step in somebody's journey to something, Ben, where you taught me earlier or gave me some examples about how to like really feel those moments out. I think I've done a really good job at being aware of them for so long that it almost feels like, well, if he's aware, then he's probably working on it. Does that make sense? That there's like I don't know if
performance.
A performance in there. It's not a lie. I am aware, but what good is it to be aware if you then don't take a next step of some kind of processing?
You're preparing. You're preparing because awareness is not like awareness action. It's awareness. Oh, I just held my space. I just wasn't as nervous. It's a gradual thing. It's not like overnight. I wake up and from tomorrow, I'm like it's really allowing that to be a process and being okay with that. That we don't go completely directly from awareness to a different action. I go to awareness, mishap, awareness. It's like this. We fall less, we get up quicker as we become more aware. And then one day we realize, I'm not falling that much. Last time I fell was, so many months ago. And then you're on the right path and you're growing in that area. But it's not like I know it and then I stop falling and then all is well and we live happily ever after. It doesn't work like that because awareness is fascinating. Awareness is like really consciousness. As you unfold it, it's like an onion. It's like, there's a lot of awareness within that awareness and behind that awareness. And then it goes back to growing again. So it's never ending process. But I really, really enjoyed your playing with us. You really played in our playground of discovery and fun. And as heavy as the subjects were, I experienced you very light in the playground with us. Was anything offered to you in this process? Is there any gift that maybe we offered you?
I keep going back to the taking the time to feel these things out. I really appreciate that. I love that tool. Ben, I even like you walking me through like almost exactly an example of what I could do. I sometimes maybe I need to hear it like that, just because I'm like, well, what do I do next? He said, well, let's not think about it so much. You can just make that space to feel it for a moment. I almost felt a little bit of relief, Ben, even from your just explaining what the experience could look like, which could be like, for instance, hearing that song, feeling the sadness, maybe the tears, and that's okay. Gave me relief. I already feel better about this is weird. I'm almost looking forward to hearing one of those songs.
And that's how it could be, right? For all of us, right? It's like, it's an opportunity. Now that thing that we were scared of is all of a sudden an opportunity for us to learn more about ourselves and to grow.
And I want to say to both of you, such a credit, this is a playground. This feels very, it's fun. I like what you two have created here. I feel really good, is the truth. I feel like light in my chest. I've been rolling my neck. I don't know, like this tension is kind of falling away just from the conversation, I don't know. I just want to thank you, because I just feel, and as you continue to do this and everybody continues to listen and stuff, this is a really wonderful thing you're doing. It's a nice space to be in, and I appreciate you holding it for me.
Ah, Chris, thank you so much for sharing that. It feels really nice to hear that from you. And I just want to say you offered a lot as well. You're courageous, man. You are a very courageous man. I experience you as very authentic and real. And there's a lot of gifts that you had to offer as well here. And even though this was like a lot of like inquiry and how you were curious about how you can learn and grow from our own experiences, there's a lot that you had to offer just through your expression, being authentic, being vulnerable, being aware.
I second that. Thank you for playing.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. For a list of the links and other resources referenced in this episode, check out the podcast description.
If you're benefiting from our podcast, we'd love if you could help us reach more people by subscribing. Your support means the world to us. From our hearts to yours, we thank you.